let's not waste any time. Let's talk Diddy. So we know today was the day in New York after a trial that started May 5th with jury selections, ended right before the 4th of July weekend. And since then, we've seen many appeals and motions and different ways that Diddy has tried to circumvent landing all the way to today, right? The prosecutors wanted 11 years. They believe that there was no remorse shown from Diddy from his actions. One of the ways that they illustrated that was that they said that Diddy booked a speaking engagement for next week. Now, the defense countered that and said that these were not paid speaking engagements. He would be speaking with one, I believe it was a transition prisoners, some type of program related to that, about, continuing on his Free Game with Diddy series that he started while in jail. The other, a woman, I guess, wanted him. She is a teacher at I think they said a K through 12 school, so all grades, wanted him to come and talk to the youth. I don't know how that would have went over with the parents, but there we go, right? During the course of this hearing, we heard from Diddy's children. I'll get into a little bit of what they had to say. Diddy himself. We already spoke about the various letters that were sent to the judge, as well as the prosecution and the lawyers. And the prosecutors called his motivational talks and plan to speak to these individuals booked in Miami next week the height of hubris, right? Giovanni Sarias, I believe that's the pronunciation of the last name. If I'm wrong, apologies. From Reentry One, he vouched for his reform. As I said, it's a transitional program. And the first talk was scheduled for Monday. So he was like, it's up and it's stuck. His children all cried when they spoke. And, you have to feel for them. First up was Quincy. Now, we know Quincy is his legally but not legally adopted son. He is Albie Shore and Kim Porter's son. But he spoke first and he said that Diddy is a changed man. We are going to love him through his struggles, but in front of you is a changed man. He also added that their father would never do anything to jeopardize his freedom again, and that in order for him to fully heal, he needed to be surrounded by his family. So that was Quincy's plea. Justin said, I ask that you give my father a second chance at life, a second chance to right his wrongs. Delilah and Jesse broke down in tears when they were speaking. They spoke individually, and they asked the judge to release their father. They talked of losing their mother at a young age and what their father has meant to them. They added that we know he isn't perfect and he has made many mistakes, and we aren't here to excuse any of those mistakes, but he is still our dad. We still need him present in our lives. Delilah, she cried and she said, we are scared of the thought of not having our father and our mom present in our lives. We are scared for our 2-year-old little sister that runs to us every night asking where daddy is. We cannot watch our baby sister grow up fatherless the same way we had to grow up motherless. So they were plucking all the heartstrings. They were, hitting those points. Chance, who is the oldest daughter, she said, we are just daughters who need our father. And Christian, he was equally emotional. He said that his dad is his superhero. We can tell. He said, my whole life, he's always taught me to treat women with respect. I've seen him treat my mom with respect and treat her like a queen. And the judge acknowledged Diddy's children after they spoke and said, I know how hard it was for you to stand up here and tell me those things, but it's important for me to hear. So he was somewhat moved by what they had to say, right? But he also very much considered all of the other things that were taken into account. He made it very clear that he was allowed to, and the prosecution pointed it out, and would consider Diddy's past behavior and positioning when considering the sentence, right? I mentioned the director of the nonprofit Reentry One, Giovanni. He said, when someone builds their own life skills and entrepreneurship programs despite legal challenges, that shows reform and rehabilitation. You know, he said that the idea that Diddy was arrogant, it's not exactly correct, right? Of course, matter of opinion. I know a lot of people would differ, right? So when Diddy himself spoke, he did break down. He turned and faced his family in the courtroom. He said that he was ashamed of himself as a son and as a father. In his letter to the court, he illustrated his disgust, as well as speaking today at his behavior and that he would never want his daughters to be subject to that. He said that it was shameful and that he was sick during that time period with drugs. He thanked the judge for finally giving him a moment to speak up for himself. He said one of the hardest things he had to do was to be quiet and not be able to express how sorry he was for his actions. He apologized to Cassie, her family, Jane Doe, as well as his children. He said, I take full responsibility for my Mann Act convictions. They want to make it, he added that he felt the prosecution wanted the judge to make an example out of him. But he said that he wanted the judge to think about the person, that what they can do if they get the second opportunity. So not going to jail, but given the opportunity to correct their wrongs, to make use of them, right? And he also said that, he planned to make an effort to speak to those that are victims as well as abusers, so to speak, and help them in the process. He said, domestic violence will always be a heavy burden that I will have to forever carry. He said that his actions were disgusting, shameful, and sick. I was sick from drugs. I was out of control. And he said that he hates himself right now, that he got stripped down to nothing. He apologized again to his children. He said that they deserve better. And again, told his mom that he failed her as a son. And he said that he was asking the judge for a chance to be a father again, to be a son again, and to be a leader in his community again. He also apologized to his community for failing them and letting them down, which is us, I suppose, and that he said that he wants to get the help that he desperately needs to become a better person, and that he doesn't want to let God down or his family down. So, there was a lot there, but ultimately the judge decided that him going home wasn't to be the case. He acknowledged Diddy's role as an icon, self-made millionaire, the people that he helped, the amount of money that he donated, but he said that there's an other side to that. And he made it clear that he felt that while 11 years was not reasonable, 14 months time served was not enough either. He said that he wanted to be sure that future behavior was deterred. He said, you say you're sorry and that you won't do it again. But after Miss Ventura's civil lawsuit was filed, after the video went public and the investigation started, you had a brutal hotel night with Jane and you punched her in the head. The judge also referred to Jane's account and says that he told when she alleged that I guess it's proof now, that he said, take this pill, go out there and, you know, do what we do, and I don't care. He said that he is not convinced that this would not happen again. He said exploitation and violence against women must be met with real accountability to promote respect for the law. He added that while Sean has completed programs, they are outweighed by the trial record. And he noted that 135-month sentence, which is what I said would have been 11 years, is not necessary. And that even the probation department recommends a sentence at less than half of that. But he wanted, again, to make sure that Puff got the message. So there is, I guess, time served to be applied. So in theory, 50 months is a little over 4 years, 4 years, 2 months. If you apply the 14 months that he served, that's a little over 3 years, right? I think federal time, you have to do the full time. There's no good behavior, but fact check me on that. And now what's left to see is if he hits up Trump and pays what I'm sure is a high ticket to see if he can convince him to give him a pardon, or does he just serve out his time and really take responsibility and accountability. So Cassie's attorney released a statement, right? And he stated that nothing can erase the trauma that Kathy experienced, and that he felt the sentencing recognized how serious the crimes were that he committed, and that they are confident that with the support of Cassie's family and friends, she will continue healing, knowing that her bravery and fortitude has been an inspiration to so many. So that is where we are. Diddy's ex, Gina, showed up in court to support him. Don't know where she sat in the courtroom, but she was there. She was escorted in. If you recall, she wrote a letter to the judge. She was on the witness list for the prosecution, but they couldn't find her. So that's that. And that's where we are. Listen, the chat is chatting. DJ Black 909 says, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. So, but he also says, don't drop the baby oil and the soap diddler. I think a lot of people feel as though, considering everything he has been accused of, this sounds about right. This is about in line what I figured they would give him. I didn't think the 11 years was rational. And if it had been someone else, and maybe not as high profile or in the position, maybe they would have gotten less time, but they had to send a message. DJ Black 909 says also he should have done at least a decade. I don't know, not for what he was convicted of. If you were saying based off of everything, not just with this case, but all of the things that we've heard over the years, sure. But as far as what he was actually convicted of, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, DJ Black 909 says he's only apologizing because he got caught. I mean, maybe, but I do submit that he did apologize, at least to Cassie, on stage at the BET Awards, while, after, during. I mean, honestly speaking, isn't most people's realization moment after they've hit rock bottom, whether that's being caught, irreparably harmed, whatever the case may be? So, I mean, I do understand that. I know that there is accountability, but I think with what the evidence had, what they showed, you can't, and do you really want someone to be convicted on hearsay stuff that may or may not have happened? I don't know. It gets tricky, especially when we're thinking about us and all of the things that potentially can happen to us when we get caught up in the judicial system. Again, not trying to remove Diddy from being accountable or any of the things that he did. I am just saying, when thinking in terms of not karmically, judicially, I think it's about right. Andy?
Just do right by people. Do
That
right by people.
I mean, and that is the bottom line to all of it, right? He also said, I think I might have read that, how his ego got him to this space. And it's like, yeah, you think, but what are we going to do? At what point, right? Just before it was public, I believe during those negotiations, even though he was harsh, he probably didn't apologize to her, but at what point would you felt he was accountable? Probably never, right? Being honest.